This is the new Zhiyun Crane M3 Pro, and it is a compact gimbal that actually supports an APS-C camera for the first time ever, I think. I reviewed the M2 about 2 years ago now, and I like that gimbal a lot just because of the small size, but this is a whole nother animal. It is so much better in so many different ways. I can't wait to show you guys all about this brand new gimbal that is releasing today. So let's jump into it.
All right, so this isn't going to be a simple, straightforward, this is what you get portion of the video because I got this gimbal in pieces in the mail. But in my particular setup, I got this white leather carrying bag. Yes, it's stylish, but it's such a small gimbal that I found myself just carrying it around without any bags whatsoever. Anyway, I got the bag, a strap, a nice bag full of little cables for connecting various cameras to the gimbal, plates to attach cameras to the gimbal, a cell phone holder attachment, a giant powered microphone, an expansion base for plugging in a wireless camera control module and a 1/4-inch microphone jack, magnetic colored light filters, a mini tripod, and custom quick release plates for the Sony a6000 and the Sony a7C.
So that is a lot of stuff, but let's get to the important bit, which is the gimbal itself. From a design standpoint, I haven't seen a gimbal quite like this one really ever. The color scheme is very different. It's reminiscent of higher end telephoto lenses from Canon and Sony with the white and black color scheme. So starting at the bottom, there is a tripod mount and electrical connections for the expansion base that you can attach to the bottom.
Now this expansion base serves two purposes that I see. The first is that you can use it to house the wireless camera control module, which Zhiyun unfortunately did not send to me. And the second is the 1/4-inch microphone jack, which can be used to connect a real XLR powered microphone to your camera.
So once you plug this thing in, you can use this microphone to interview people. In fact, if I was around people, I would probably interview them right now. And this cable is nice and flexible, so if I wanted to, I could back up and be at least 20 or 25 feet from my cameraman holding the gimbal. So it's pretty cool. I mean, it's obviously not something that you'd use all the time, but if you are outside, then this is nice to have a little microphone, and all of the audio is running through the gimbal into the camera.
Back to the gimbal. The grip here is nice with a smooth rubberized texture. There is a button on the bottom to switch modes and or go into lock mode, and a scroll wheel here to control various items on the camera, which can be configured via settings. On the left with your thumb, there is a smaller scroll wheel which controls a built-in video light at the top of the gimbal, which combined with the magnetic gels is again quite genius. The only issue that I can see is that larger lenses and lens hoods will get in the way of this light, but in dark situations, it is nice to have the flexibility of an additional video light if you need it. There is also a 1/4-inch expansion port thread on this side as well. In the center, there is a toggle switch, an M mode button, and a dash button, and a 1.22-inch touchscreen for navigating the gimbal's menu system, which is very simple and very straightforward. You don't need to download an app to open and make any changes to the settings on this gimbal. You can do it all here, which is so nice. On the right side, there is a power button and a USB Type-C connector to charge the integrated battery. Moving up to the arms, each axis has a lock, which is great for storage and packing. It also makes balancing the gimbal much easier. The pan, roll, and tilt axis motors are labeled. Now the last axis, the tilt, is where this thing gets even more genius. Up here you see the video light, which you've seen before. You can adjust not only brightness, but color temperature from a cool blue to a nice warm yellow. And there are two ports here, one USB-C and one microphone. Also, the glowing M3 on this gimbal is pretty cool, I have to say. It's only visible when the gimbal is turned on. It's a pretty sleek design choice. But this bracket system is the real genius part.
If you guys remember my review of the M2, one of the complaints that I had about that gimbal was that every single time you wanted to pack it down to take it with you somewhere, or every time you really had to take the camera off of the gimbal, you had to put it back on and rebalance it every single time, and it was frustrating. They've solved that issue with the M3 Pro because of these quick release plates. Now, if I take the camera off, I can change the battery, take out the SD card, and then snap it back into place without affecting any of my initial balancing settings. This is the first gimbal I think that I've ever reviewed that I could confidently say you can balance it once and probably never ever have to balance it again unless you're swapping out lenses. So another complaint I had about the M2 was there wasn't enough torque to handle a heavier camera and lens setup. So I used that gimbal with my A6100 and just the kit lens because that's really all that it was capable of holding. With this gimbal, the M3 Pro, I was able to mount my Sony G16-55, which is a decently heavy lens, with my Sony A6100. That is roughly a 2-pound, just over 2-pound setup, and it worked flawlessly on a tiny little handheld gimbal such as this one. And what's great about that is that all together, like if you were to use, for example, the Sigma 18-50, which is what I have here, and the A6600 and this gimbal, this is 3.5 pounds, which I can carry this around all day, vlog all day if I want to, and really not get tired, versus what my cameraman is using right now is the Crane 3 Lab with the Sony a7C and the brand new Tamron 28-75 G2, which is 7.5 pounds of total weight. So the important bit is, how does this gimbal perform? Well, I took it with my A6600 and the Sigma 18-50 f2.8 on a day trip up to Dallas with my wife, and here is what that footage looks like, unedited, well, chopped up, but really not edited as far as stabilized. This is how smooth you can get your shots with this tiny little gimbal. So at the end of the day, this is a very capable gimbal. It's much more capable than the M2 model because now you can actually put a decently heavy setup. For APS-C camera users, it's perfect because it's small enough to take with you anywhere, and it's powerful enough to hold a decent camera and lens setup.
Battery life is excellent. I wish there was a battery percentage on the screen, but there is a battery percentage when you open up the app once I've updated to the newest firmware, which is awesome. I'm sure that they are going to add this to the screen later on via a firmware update. The stabilization in general is good. I was expecting it to be worse, but with new algorithms that Zhiyun is using, they do a really good job stabilizing video footage. Really, the only complaint I have is something that is missing from this gimbal that was available on the older model, and that is the fine-tuning of the speed of each motor. With the M2, I could slow down the pan axis on a scale of 1 to 50, whereas with this new gimbal, you just have a couple of settings to play within the menu system. Now, I reached out to Zhiyun and I asked them about this, and they said that they are adding that feature back. It just is a firmware update.
So overall, this is a great gimbal and an easy one to recommend because Zhiyun addressed all of the concerns or all the issues that I had with the M2, and they fixed it with this. Now it has more torque for heavier payloads, and they've added new things that I never really thought about needing in a gimbal, such as the light and the touchscreen on the back and the expandable base with the microphone. There's really a lot of cool features that are well thought out, and the overall performance is excellent. You get a nice and smooth shot. Obviously, probably not as smooth as what you can get from my Crane 3 Lab, but that's a much bigger, much heavier gimbal. Unfortunately, I don't know what pricing is on this thing because it's released today, and Zhiyun didn't tell me how much this thing is gonna cost, so I'll leave some links down in the description box below and you can discover pricing along with me because I'm curious. If it's priced anywhere close to what the M2 was priced at, it's going to be a bargain for what you're getting for the money. That is going to be it for my review of the Crane M3 Pro. I hope you guys enjoyed it and you learned something from it. As always, leave your comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Thank you so much for all of your comments, all of your likes, and your support. Stay tuned for more, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.